Welcome to the Deal Doctor Livestream, 1 o'clock Monday. Thanks for joining. Today we're going to do another Stump the Deal Doctor. We did this a few months ago and it was kind of fun. And so we thought we'd up the ante. Eric and I are going to answer as many questions as we can until the money runs out, which won't take long if we don't answer the questions correctly. So we're going to do our best, and there's never any guarantee because, as you all know, sometimes you will call us and we won't have an answer for you, and we'll have to call the attorney or whatever. So please welcome Eric. Say hello, Eric. And we're going to get...
Hello, there we go.
There we go.
I'm up and running.
Okay. And just so we decided last time we did sweatshirts, we gave away sweatshirts. And this time we thought we'd up it a little bit because Valentine's Day is coming, and you might want to buy dinner for your beloved, or just some food for the kitchen, whatever, a nice pair of shoes. And so we have a $100 gift card. Now this gift card is a little bit, it's not exactly like the gift card that you normally see that's at Walgreens or whatever. This gift card has a picture of Benjamin Franklin on it. So that's what it looks like. That's gift card 1, gift card 2, and if you really hurt us today, we might even have a backup. So anyway, let's get started with Cindy Beckwith. And the question, what is the difference between assessed value, state equalized value, and taxable value? Eric, you want to handle that one, or you want me to? Eric, you there?
All right, Don. Yeah, go ahead, please. I'm having some
technical difficulties. Okay, so the assessed value is the one that is theoretically half of the value, the market value. And so as we've seen market values increase, the assessed values have gone up. Now, once the assessor figures out what your assessed value is, then the state and or county applies a multiplier to that to weight that according to their norms, because sometimes they don't want to tax people out of their homes, or they might want to increase the amount of money they get in taxes, so they apply a multiplier to it to change it to the state equalized value. And the taxable value is what homeowners are paying now when they currently get their tax bill. The taxable value is the least reliable of the bunch. So if buyers see taxable value, that's not something to calculate their monthly payment on, because their monthly payment is likely to change once the assessor gets in and does a new assessed value after the sale has closed. How do we do with that one? Okay. Marissa, can agents put a yard sign in front of a listing during a delayed submission period? Eric?
Yeah, with the delayed submission, the answer would be no. We can't do any type of marketing to the public, because once marketing to the public begins, according to the Clear Cooperation Policy, we have 1 business day to ensure that that listing is live. Now, 1 business day is a Monday through Friday. It excludes Saturday and Sundays and state and federal holidays. So in theory, someone could actually drop a sign in on a Friday, have all Saturday, Sunday to market that, but it better go live on that Monday morning.
Okay, fair enough. Kelly Schmidt has a question for us, Eric. I have been told, let me back up, I've been told that you can't change the MLS to the purchase price from the list price, parentheses, to help with the appraisal and help our client with appraisal gap amount not being crazy. Okay, if I understand, and help me, Kelly, you're going to have to clarify this a little bit with us. I'm guessing that what you're referring to is after the sale goes pending, the multiple listing will not allow you to show the sales price, the actual purchase price of that property prior to the actual closing occurring. And the reason for that is the multiple listing doesn't want to post a purchase price out there. In the event that sale falls through, then whoever might be watching that property would know what a prior offer had been accepted, what amount of prior offer had been accepted at. So would you agree with that one, Eric?
I would, but there's also differences of opinions out there according to associations. Some associations do not, they don't prevent it, but they encourage, highly recommend that it not be done because they don't want it to skew certain figures and data on the MLS, because it's going to be based on list price versus actual sales price, 97% or 100%. All of a sudden, what's the point of having this data when everything's going to come out to exactly whatever the list price is and the final sales price is 100%. We don't know how to gauge whether the market is truly reflecting proper pricing, because if we end up changing the data, manipulating the data, we don't know whether agents are truly getting top dollar or not. So it's just not a wise practice.
Question from Jeff Moore. What is your favorite ice cream, Jeff? I know it's a ploy for me to buy you lunch. Just never mind. We'll talk tomorrow. Moving on. Monique Hansen.
Moose Tracks is great, and mint chocolate chip.
Pretty much. Any of them, it's good. Monique, when can a buyer ask a seller to pay a commission to the buyer's broker? Eric, you want to take that one?
What was that question? So
when can a buyer ask a seller to pay a commission to the buyer's broker?
Well, all the time. That's why I'd like to see have that seller pay.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a pretty common practice when it's kind of what the co-brokerage system is based on, is the seller is offering a compensation to a buyer's agent within the co-brokerage system. So that happens all the time. I'm suspecting, and correct me if I'm wrong, that this question is about if I'm working for a buyer as a buyer's agent, can I ask a seller to pay my buyer agency fee even though I'm working for the buyer? And the answer is yeah, we can do that all the time. One of the best ways to do that is by using a compensation agreement. If you've go on Dotloop, the compensation agreement is there. You can fill that out, have the seller sign it, mark on there that the buyer's agent is working on behalf of the buyer, not the seller, but the seller is going to pay the commission. Does that work?
Yeah, it's very similar to a for sale by owner, where we're representing a buyer and we go to that seller and say, look, we have a buyer that we'd like to bring, but would you be willing to pay me a compensation? So that's where that compensation form would come into play. Okay,
Crystal has go ahead.
I was just to keep in mind that your buyer's agency contract also addresses language in there that's important to ensure that you have, that states that when you do represent a buyer, that the seller will help offset any fees associated to the buyer's broker. Now, there is language in there that needs to be cited and explained. And also, we can't just sit there and say that, hey, buyer, we work for free. I mean, we're not allowed to say that. So we need to be very careful about when we're reading those contracts and explaining how that compensation is made to the buyer's agent.
Exactly. Crystal Halleck, with a court-ordered sale, who gets a check at closing when there are multiple parties involved? Should that also be written into the court order? And my initial response is, if it's a court order, the court order will stipulate the people who will get the money. Would you agree with that, Eric, or no?
Yeah, that court order is going to dictate who is going to be responsible. How they determine that after the fact is up to the parties, but the parties would be named on who the primary person would be or in this case, could be multiple people who would be accepting payment on behalf of that sale.
For example, we see this in divorce situations. One spouse or the other might have the right to sell the property, but the proceeds of that sale are dictated by the court order, by the divorce decree, to be split between the husband or wife, however it might work.
Yeah, that would be spelled out in the judgment of divorce.
Right.
And typically the party who ends up being awarded that money is going to have to pay money to get an attorney to have the other side perform according to that judgment of divorce. So it does get a little still expensive.
With regard to letters from lending institutions, is there a difference between a buyer being pre-approved for financing and pre-qualified for financing? My answer, I'll take a stab at this and say, depends on which lender. Some lenders will take the distinction of being pre-approved more seriously than others. Pre-qualified suggests that maybe they had a conversation on the phone, they took some income information, really didn't know, maybe didn't ran a credit report, didn't dig very deep into it, but with the pre-approval, they might have actually verified some income, verified some deposits, but the definition of those terms is really up to the lending institution, so we really have to be a little skeptical of that language when we see it. Pre-approved, pre-qualified, they may actually mean the same thing. Would you agree?
Yeah, every single lender has different steps that they take. So yes, it's not as clear as what it used to be.
Okay, Monique, and thank you for clarifying. This is great. It's a great clarification, and I'm going to read it so that Eric can understand it. He doesn't have the screen in front of him like I do here, so she says, thank you. I was just reading a Realtor magazine that said if a multiple listing is only paying 2.5%, but the buyer-broker agreement says the buyer to pay 3%, the buyer can ask the seller to pay the additional 0.5%, half percent, and it blew my mind because I thought we couldn't put the commission on the PA at all. And you're absolutely right. You can't put the commission, any change in the commission, request for commission on the purchase agreement. That doesn't mean that you can't ask for it. However, I want to be very clear that if you ask for a higher level of commission than is offered on the co-brokerage agreement, you must have that conversation prior to you showing the house to your buyer. You can't go and show the house, say, oh, we really like this, and we want to write an offer, but you're only offering 2.5%, and I have 3% on my buyer's agency contract. That's a violation. Would you agree, Eric?
Yeah, you can't hold your client or your buyer hostage to not go see a house for that 0.5%. That would need to be addressed before you even show the home with anyone, and that listing agent might say, no, I'm only offering 2.5%, and you have to accept that. Furthermore, you cannot exclude showing that house to your client because it's only listed at 2.5%, because that's a violation. There are Department of Justice and NAR new guidelines have just come out addressing this fact, from preventing agents from showing homes that don't meet that 3% or 3.5% commission rate, or it's listed at a lower rate. But it doesn't exclude you from ensuring that you have that conversation with your client. So if your buyer's agency agreement states that you're going to get 3%, you're going to collect the 2.5% from the listing side, but you better have a conversation with the client, letting them know that, hey, I'm also going to charge you a 0.5% or that 0.5%. Now, you may not follow through with it and just accept the 2.5%, but there is an opportunity there that you could also charge your client at 0.5%, that difference. That's what your buyer's agency agreement states.
I'm going to follow up Monique's question here and say, okay, if we don't do it on the PA, if we don't do it on the purchase agreement, we all know that we're not supposed to do that on the purchase agreement. Well, how do we do it? How do we ask the the seller through the listing agent, how do we ask them to pay a 3% commission before I show the house? How would that, what shape would that take?
Well, there's a couple of ways that you could do this. First of all, before we even write anything, you need to realize that commission payments are not between a buyer and seller. They're between a broker and broker. So you need to understand that first, that who's paying that. It's a broker paying it to another broker. So normally with something like this, someone could just easily just take a Word document and spell out language that listing broker and seller will pay the following, instead of 2.5%, will compensate buying broker, 5-star real estate, 3% for this following property. Get both brokers to sign it. We also encourage the listing agent to sign as well, because we want to ensure that their client was notified of this, and we'd also get the buyer's agent to sign, as well as 5-star broker, and then that would be what would be finalized at closing, that commission.
So, important thing, that's the simplest way to do it, is through a Word document. Have both brokers sign it. The brokers have to agree to a change in commission. So I think that's really an important part of it. Michelle Lipka is asking, through a buyer's agency agreement. Well, I would assume, I would hope, that you have a buyer's agency agreement paying you that 3% of the sales price, but you can't force the seller to pay an additional 3%. It has to be an agreement with that listing broker to compensate you at a higher level than you are being offered through the co-brokerage agreement. So, what do we got so far? Hey, okay, listen, we're 20 minutes into this thing. I didn't think we were going to last this long, guys. I know you can get tougher on us than this. So, I'm going to ask a question and see if maybe Eric can answer this one. You ready, Eric?
Let's go.
All right, buddy. What's the difference between between a life estate and a ladybird deed? What is a ladybird deed, and how is it different than a life estate?
Okay.
This is the part where you say call an attorney.
Right. But I'm familiar with the ladybird deed. So let's start with that. So a ladybird deed is simply where, let's say you have a person that's living in a home. I bring a buyer. The buyer wants to buy that property, and the person that's living in the home, it's a contingent sale. It's a contingent sale based on that the purchase agreement truly won't become activated, or the buyer truly won't end up buying that property until the person is deceased or dies. It's allowing that person a lifelong ability to live in that home or that estate until they die. Then the buyer's vested interest in the home actually transfers at upon death. That's a ladybird deed, where someone is able to stay in a property until they die. And then the property will be transferred to the new buyer. A life estate, again, I'd have to look up the term on what they're trying to figure out. Life estate.
Well, in fairness,
someone's gonna stay in the property for their entire life. But again, I'd have to look at the way the structure is.
Well, in fairness, I actually was looking it up over the weekend for a question one of our agents posed to me, and I didn't know the answer, so I had to do some research. And the best way to describe it is a life estate and a ladybird deed are very, very, very similar. A ladybird deed is actually an enhanced life estate. For example, a guy by the name of Miles Bokaloo was a Detroit industrialist, owned a bunch of land up on Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore, wasn't part of the lakeshore, but he wanted, when he died, he wanted his land to go to the Sleeping Bear Dunes National Lakeshore. So he created a life estate, and which would give, upon his death, the title to the Sleeping Dunes National Lakeshore. That he could not rescind that action, Whereas with a Ladybird deed, which is, by the way, named for Lyndon Baines Johnson's wife, Ladybird Johnson, that's how he conveyed title to Ladybird Johnson for the land that he owned. Now, the interesting part about it is that the Ladybird deed allows that owner to rescind that life estate, which is why it's an enhanced life estate. Just a little bit of trivia that we run into.
I guess my final answer would be get an attorney.
Get an attorney. There you go. The article was suggesting, Monique, again, the article was suggesting that you could put it on the PA. I'll send you the article via PM. You know what? Just email or post it right here. We'll be happy to respond to it. But this is, it may differ throughout states, but in Michigan, and with our multiple listing systems, it's very, very clear that we don't want to have negotiation of commission for a couple of reasons. If you have negotiation of commission on the purchase agreement, the brokers become party to the purchase agreement, number one, and there is, how do I want to say this? The co-brokerage agreement offered now becomes part of a negotiation which is really between the buyer and the seller, not between the brokers. As Eric pointed out, the commission is an agreement between the brokers. So it's in my view, a very dangerous practice. But you know what, Monique? You deserve a Hyundai for that one, okay? So we're gonna send a Hyundai your way, Monique. You get that one. So. All right, we got about...
I have a question for you, Don.
Oh, you know, paybacks, anyway, go on, give it up.
How does one determine whether someone owns mineral rights?
Call an attorney. Well, that's a really, really challenging thing to find out, and it's very expensive, by the way. They can do what they call a deep dive in title work, and they can do a search for any outstanding recorded leases or sales of mineral rights going back to, 40, 50, 60 years. The challenge of that, though, is if there are mineral rights leases or sales which have occurred which are not recorded, they're not going to show up, and they may yet be still enforceable. Does that help?
Sure does.
All right.
Yeah,
so,
large parcels can range. If you have a 236 acre parcel, you could be looking at anywhere from $4,000 to $8,000 just to try to determine mineral rights and what's there. And then again, like Don said, it's really going to depend on what previous leases there are, whether there's certain royalties being paid, whether there's been a wellhead that's capped on there. So there's, or whether there's aggregate. There's companies that will come out and actually do or drill bore samples throughout property, determine whether the value of that. And truly, how does one price mineral rights? We don't know. We basically just try to open it up to a large market of people and see who's willing to pay the largest sum. There is no actual one common way to price mineral rights. In case anyone wanted to know, how do you price them? It's based on demand from the public.
I'm going to follow that one up, Eric. If let's say that you go to list a property and the seller, you ask the seller, do you own the mineral rights? And they waffle a little bit and they go, well, I'm not real sure. I know that there was something that happened with my dad back in the 1950s or 60s or whatever. What do we do with that? What do we do with that kind of a situation?
Well, one, I'd see if the title company can find anything. I would see whether they're able to do anything, but most of the time they're not going to be able to do the extensive research. And frankly, if someone doesn't know, they need to put unknown in a seller's disclosure because they really don't know.
Yeah.
If there's doubt, disclose that they don't know. Don't just come out and say, yes, we own it, because it sounds like they really don't. If they have proof, great. If not, it's really going to be unknown.
Would it be wise if they are uncertain, maybe actually kind of leaning toward thinking that there might have been some agreement at some point, that the listing agent would say, that the buyer's agent is responsible for exercising due diligence to discover any and all existing mineral rights agreements going back however long. Would it be wise to share that and say, you know, heads up, this is your job, buyer's agent, to identify that?
Yeah, always. If you think that you know something, disclose it. Even if you put it under agent-only remarks in the MLS, or even when you're having a conversation with someone who's interested, hey, look, this is what we believe. There may be a capped well here. There may have been a past lease that's now expired, but we just want to let you be aware of that. Because we can go into the state of Michigan and we can determine whether there have been capped wells. There's always permit numbers. We can verify what's happening on the property. We can verify past leases and whether they're still active or not. So there are means for us to find something ourselves as agents. But a lot of times we have to turn it over to a specialty company, maybe not a title company, but an actual company that works specifically to dive into these past leases and mineral rights.
Brian Cribb says, don't the mineral rights expire after so many years, some certain number of years? And my answer to this is that depends on the lease under which they were either leased or sold. What were the terms of that contract, which gave up the mineral rights to a gas exploration company or oil exploration company? There's no, to my knowledge, there's no state-regulated, state ordinance in place that says after 20 years or whatever, they're no longer in force. Would you agree?
Yeah, back in the early 1900s, a lot of the mineral rights used to be for 100 years. And then we started seeing a lot of changes, probably in the 50s and 60s, 70s to 20-year products, but then it's really been tied up to what the lease is between the landowner and the company doing the exploration, whether it's natural gas, oil, or aggregate. There's a lease that's normally there that will spell out the royalties. It'll spell out for how long, what type of ingress and egress they're able to overdo, or what they're able to do. So it's like Don said, you really need to look at the lease and what's been agreed upon by the parties. Because they're so different all the time.
All right, last question.
As I say, and there's also pockets like in the northern area of Michigan. There's a lot more mineral rights going on compared to the middle of the state and in the southern area. There's major pockets that you end up seeing a lot more mineral right activities occurring.
Jessica Mann gets the last question of the day. Here's the scenario: homeowner 1 has lived in the property for 7 years. Previous owners lived there for 40 years. New neighbor moves in and they share a driveway. New neighbor wants to put a fence up splitting the driveway, has a survey, and it shows their property line goes almost to the neighbor's house. Therefore, homeowner 1 doesn't actually have a driveway. Turns out in homeowner 1's deed, it says they have an easement to the driveway, for the driveway. Can the new neighbor change that at all, or is homeowner number 1 safe in saying they do still have that easement for the driveway? Okay, Jessica, I think we can answer that, but that deserves $100 just because of the complexity of it. So I think we can almost say this together. 1, 2, 3. Call your attorney.
Call an attorney.
The likelihood is that homeowner number 1 would have a right to that driveway either through the easement or potentially through help me with the phrase I'm looking for, not eminent domain.
Ingress.
Adverse possession.
Adverse, yeah.
It's possible that an attorney could establish that because they've lived there and that has been going on for 47 years essentially, that the new homeowner doesn't have the right to change that, and especially if they have a lease, or an easement within the deed that carries with the property in perpetuity. So would you agree, Eric?
Yeah, in order to change that easement, you need to have attorneys draft a new easement language, but it also have to be agreed upon.
Absolutely.
By both parties.
So
good luck trying to agree on that.
So
if I'm the homeowner that I want my driveway.
So Jessica, I think you win just for the complexity of your question, and thank you all for joining. We gave away a little money here today, and I hope you all got something out of it today. And we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Thank you.